This is the story of the war that does not speak its name. A war that started over 40 years ago.
Axis of evil.
The war between Iran on the one side and the United States and Israel on the other is both ideological and strategic, a conflict that stirs up passions, resentment, and hatred. To understand this potential return of barbaric violence, we must go back in time to unravel the tangled threads of tragedy, seek the elusive truths behind the dogmas and the certainties, and tell this story. The history of the war began on February 1st, 1979, aboard a flight from Paris to Tehran. An old man is praying. This is Ayatollah Khomeini. He is preparing to radically change the history of Iran.
It isn't easy to talk about the greatness of this figure. One of his enemies once remarked that there had been no one like him for 800 years, and there would be no one else like him for another 1,000 years.
Khomeini historically embodied the people's opposition to the Shah, the all-powerful monarch who had reigned over Iran for nearly 40 years. In exile for 15 years, the Ayatollah was finally returning home for the final battle alongside his people, a revolution in the name of Shiite Islam. A new era was about to begin in the Middle East. A year before Khomeini's return, an uprising began in Tehran. In early 1978, hundreds of thousands of Iranians took to the streets to challenge their ruler. Demonstrators had had enough of a ruler who, bent on making Iran a great power, sought to impose Western-style modernity on them, either willingly or by force. They viewed it as an unfair and corrupt system that failed to meet the most basic needs of the population. Two countries had come to embody the imperialism condemned by the demonstrators. Two countries that supported the Shah's regime, the United States and Israel. Today, it is difficult to imagine those two countries were the Iranian state's closest allies.
For us, Iran was arguably our most important partner after the United States in terms of economic interests. We undertook some grand projects with them.
Back in the 1950s, Israel had made overtures to the Shah. Isolated in an Arab world that refused to acknowledge its existence, the Hebrew state was looking for non-Arab partners a little further afield in the Middle East. Iran, Persian, pro-Western, built on a different kind of Islam to the other Arab countries, stood out as a natural ally.
It's hard to imagine now, but it was a very close-knit collaboration.
that has the most advanced technology.
Washington, too, had chosen to make Iran the cornerstone of its influence in the region.
All comes in so fast that it has.
The high degree of military cooperation was designed to keep Tehran in the Western camp.
Also, this was the time of the Cold War, of course, and Iran was a major arena of US-Soviet competition. So yes, the Shah was close to America because he felt that it needed the American support in confronting the USSR and maintaining his government in power.
For both Tel Aviv and Washington, Iran under the Shah was an invaluable partner, the key piece in the great Middle Eastern game. But neither Israel nor America realized the extent and strength of an opposition that was destined to prevail.
When I spoke with the generals, they would tell me, look, it's like measles. We're seeing demonstrations at the moment. That's the way it is. The Shah has asked us to sort it out because he's the military chief. Well, we're sorting it out.
The blindness and incomprehension of a regime faced with such a powerful and determined uprising was heading for tragedy. That day, Black Friday, the Shah's army opened fire in the streets of Tehran. The official death toll was 87, but according to opposition estimates, it was closer to 4,000. The monarchy had just revealed its true face. The revolutionary process was underway, and now there was no stopping it. Regarded as supporters of the Shah, Israeli and American expatriates became targets and began to leave the country. Protesters attacked cafes, restaurants, banks, and cinemas. Western symbols of modernity associated with the stronghold Israel and the United States had on their country. Tearing down the monarchy, breaking ties with Washington and Tel Aviv, rejecting Western-style modernity. All of these objectives combined into a single battle.
Gradually, as the movement began to pick up momentum, and it was a movement in need of a leadership, in need of a leader, the person that fit the bill seemed to have been Ayatollah Khomeini.
I have to say that not only the different factions of Islamic movement followed Ayatollah Khomeini and joined him, but the other factions of the movement as well, like nationalists, like Marxists, all factions supported Ayatollah Khomeini as the leader of the revolution.
The time had come for Khomeini to realize his dream, the introduction of a radical doctrine and establishment of an Islamic Republic. A theocracy wherein the ultimate power lay with a religious authority, the supreme leader, him. Khomeini set foot on Iranian soil, ready to deliver the fatal blow to the monarchy. Nothing and no one could stand in his way.
It was shocking. It was really shocking. About 10 million people came to the streets of Tehran. This was the biggest welcoming ceremony ever during the history, as long as I remember. 10 million people to come to welcome a leader.
And everybody looked at him as the leader of the revolution, a charismatic leader, and a man of God at the same time, that he will rescue the country, and we will have a paradise on the earth.
Khomeini was now the man who embodied the legitimacy of power, especially as the Shah, weakened by ill health, had departed the country 3 weeks earlier.
من دولت تعیین میکنم، من تو دهن این دولت میزنم، من دولت تعیین میکنم، من به پشتیبانی این ملت دولت تعیین میکنم، من به واسطه اینکه ملت مرا قبول دارد.
10 days later, after only 48 hours of fighting in the streets of Tehran, the overthrow of the Iranian monarchy the Shah had ruled over for 37 years was complete. The revolution had achieved a total victory. Ayatollah Khomeini was the country's new leader. The revolutionaries immediately attacked the enemies identified by the new regime, with the Israeli diplomatic mission sacked and completely devastated. Its 33 members were the last Israelis still in Iran. They traveled in small groups to the Hilton Hotel in central Tehran, where a bus was waiting to take them to the airport, a distance of some 17 kilometers. 17 kilometers through a hotbed of revolution.
17 kilometers, 10 million Iranians on either side of the road, all with tomatoes and eggs. In the bus, there was a driver and 2 Iranians with Kalashnikovs. Our bus moved on. They thought it was a revolutionary bus. Not a single egg or tomato was thrown.
On reaching the airport, they boarded the aircraft. But just as the plane was about to take off,
we boarded the plane, the engine started, and it began to taxi. Then all of a sudden, it stopped. The doors opened and armed revolutionaries barged in again. I thought to myself, what is it this time? They wanted to carry out one final check. I don't know what for. Then they closed the door and we took off. For as long as we were over Iranian territory, the mood remained tense. Once we'd crossed the border, the Israelis erupted into cheers.
Meanwhile, the Israelis' arch-enemy, Yasser Arafat, leader of the PLO, the Palestinian Liberation Organization, was arriving in Tehran, welcomed like a true head of state. Arafat had become leader of the PLO in 1969. Its stated ambition was to create a Palestinian state, independent of its Arab backers. From his base in Lebanon, Arafat had been leading his Fedayeen, his fighters, into guerrilla actions on the northern border with Israel. Now he had come to seek the support of Khomeini, a man he hoped could help Palestinians achieve their independence.
Definitely, it changed completely the whole strategic policy in this area.
In case of a war,
upside down completely.
By inviting Arafat to Tehran, Khomeini was sending a powerful message to the entire Muslim world. From now on, Iran would be supporting the Palestinian cause. Khomeini then took a provocative initiative. Instead of an Israeli diplomatic presence, there would now be a Palestinian embassy. It was a clear statement. With this gesture, the Ayatollah was severing all links with Israel, a state whose existence had no legitimacy for him. Any strategic alliance between Israel and Iran was now unquestionably a thing of the past. The United States recognized the young Islamic Republic, but in Washington, there was concern about what kind of relations would be possible with Iran's new rulers.
Within the American government, there were differing opinions. Some thought that Khomeini was an extreme force, and it would be very difficult for us to deal with.
I think most people still thought of Iran as a country that, we could continue to get along with, that even though the Shah was gone, that, we would maintain relations. We had our embassy there.
Then, on November 4th, 1979, hundreds of Islamist students stormed the American embassy, taking 52 diplomats hostage. Khomeini was hesitant. Would he support these students and risk seriously jeopardizing relations with the United States? Would he support them to keep control of the movement?
وقتی که جوانهای پاسدارمون لانه جاسوسی را فتح کردند و جاسوسان جوانهایی که می‌خواستند که از زیر دوغ امریکا و خودشون برای خودشون کشورشون را اداره کنند.
When the hostage crisis occurred, it made clear, I think, that we were largely unprepared to deal with the nature of Iran at that point, and the fact that the anger that was there and reflected in that hostage crisis, I think suddenly brought Iran to the top of the concerns that we had about our situation in the world.
The last hostages were finally freed after 444 days. By supporting the students, Khomeini made the U.S. Embassy hostage-taking Act 2 of the revolution. It became one of the founding myths of the new regime, widely seen as the main reason for the breakdown in U.S.-Iranian relations. A new Middle East was taking shape. Nothing would ever be the same again. Tehran's ambitions and interests were on a collision course with Washington and Tel Aviv. A great clash was looming. On this day, nearly 90,000 Israeli soldiers, 1,300 tanks, and 1,500 personnel carriers invaded Lebanon, a country seemingly unconnected to the emerging confrontation between Iran, Israel, and the United States. Torn apart by civil war for many years, Lebanon had become a regional battleground. Syria occupied a part of the country to the east, but in the south especially, the PLO was all-powerful. The Palestinian organization had made the area its operational base for instigating deadly raids against Israel. On June 6, 1982, Tel Aviv launched Operation Peace for Galilee. The objective was spelled out loud and clear: to seize control of southern Lebanon, and thus put an end to the guerrilla operations launched by Arafat's Fedayeen.
We came here to fight and destroy the terrorist organizations that have been killing and murdering our people for years and years. That is our goal here.
Ariel Sharon, recently appointed Minister of Defense, was leading the offensive. To his fellow countrymen, he was a hero who had been at the forefront of every military victory Israel had won since its inception in 1948.
Once we finish it, we'll move immediately back. We don't have any interest whatsoever to stay here, not our country. We don't need even 1 square inch of this country.
Within a week, Sharon had far exceeded the initial objectives, as his army made rapid advances. Tehran looked on stupefied. With Israeli troops advancing towards the Lebanese capital, the balance of power in the Middle East was radically shifting. For Khomeini, it was unthinkable. But how should he react? Engaged in an all-out war against Iraq after the attack launched by Saddam Hussein 2 years previously in September 1980, the young Islamic Republic would be forced to fight for its survival for 8 long years in what became known as the Iran-Iraq War. At this stage, the Iranian leader did not have the resources to open another front against Israel in Lebanon.
Khomeini issued a statement justifying this decision, saying the road to Quds, which is Jerusalem, goes through Karbala, which was a religious way of expressing a deeply strategic decision, meaning first things first. The aspiration for Iran to play some role in the liberation of Jerusalem comes after Iran has managed to defeat Saddam Hussein.
In Beirut, heavy shelling was now falling on the west of the capital, where Arafat and most of his troops had taken refuge. Part of the city was razed to the ground. Thousands were dead, mostly civilians. On August 21, 1982, the Israeli siege ended.
Yasser Arafat paid a final visit to his West Beirut headquarters.
Defeated, Arafat departed Lebanon and went into exile in Tunisia with 10,000 of his Fedayeen. They were replaced by a multinational force composed mainly of U.S. and French troops, tasked with ensuring the safety of the Lebanese capital. For Sharon and Prime Minister Menachem Begin, the Palestinian question was settled. They could now proceed with their secret objective of transforming Lebanon. The multi-faith country would become a Christian state led by the Maronite minority. This new Lebanon would be a powerful state and, above all, an ally. But their plans would unknowingly awaken another Lebanese community, the largest in the country, the Shiite community. Settled mainly in the east and in the south of Lebanon, the Shiites had suffered directly from the invasion and Israeli occupation. Some resolved to take up arms and resist.
It was my belief in 1982 that Israel was an enemy. And I supported the Palestinian cause. I considered myself to be on their side.
Naim Qasim was then 29 years old. A chemistry teacher in Beirut, he was leader of the Union of Islamist Educational Associations, a Shiite organization.
فوجدنا أن الإمام الخميني هو
For us, the thinking of Imam Khomeini chimed perfectly with our deep beliefs.
التي نؤمن بها.
So we got together with some other Islamist groups and came to an agreement.
حركات إسلامية ومجموعات إسلامية كانت موجودة في لبنان.
We went to Iran to proclaim our willingness to pledge allegiance to Imam Khomeini, to allow him to be our guide and to respect his authority. And he gave us his blessing.
وهو أعطى المباركة.
Khomeini welcomed this alliance. It would allow him to better fight the Jewish state. It was an obvious union, given his old and deep ties with the Lebanese Shiites.
Many of the leaders of the revolution in Iran, who became at top positions after the victory of revolution, they had very good background in Lebanon before revolution, good connection with Shia people in Lebanon. You know, Shiism in south of Lebanon is older than Shiism in Iran.
In the summer of 1982, Lebanese Shia leaders gathered in the city of Baalbek in the Bekaa Valley, located in the east of the country, to set up a new organization to fight Israel with the backing of Khomeini. It called itself the Islamic Resistance in Lebanon. It officially took the name Hezbollah 3 years later in 1985.
Hezbollah's initial objectives were military. It was not only about offering armed resistance against the Israelis, rather to end the occupation by any means necessary and drive them out of Lebanon.
To help the new organization, Iran sent a few hundred revolutionary guards to the Bekaa Valley in the summer of 1982. These men were part of the elite body created at the birth of the Islamic Republic and charged with its defense. It reported directly to the supreme leader. While these elite soldiers did not actually fight, they supplied weapons, money, and know-how. Their presence also implicated another country whose army had a presence in this part of Lebanon, Syria. To reach the Bekaa Valley, the men benefited from the help of the dictator Hafez al-Assad, another fervent opponent of the State of Israel. This way, Khomeini was establishing what would prove to be a strategic alliance for many decades to come, the partnership with Syria.
They began organizing the Hezbollah. They began organizing an alliance with Assad. They began selling, giving away oil to Assad to buy a relationship with Assad because they began to think about what they call their strategic depth. They wanted to have tools at their disposal to threaten Israel with, which meant threaten the United States with, and say, if you hit us, we can hit you back. And then by creating the Hezbollah, they hit both the Israelis and the United States in Lebanon.
What took root in the confines of the Bekaa Valley was a veritable system of alliances. A system set up by Iran with the help of Syria. A system that created a new political entity, Hezbollah. A system which would later give rise to the powerful Iran-Syria-Hezbollah axis in the Middle East. But for the moment, nobody was aware of the emergence of this system, least of all, the Americans and Israelis. Der Kanun, southern Lebanon, about 10 kilometers from the Israeli border. At around 6:30 a.m., a white Peugeot stuffed with explosives leaves the village, heading towards Tyre, the largest town in the region. At the wheel is a young 18-year-old resistance fighter and member of Hezbollah. His name is Ahmad Kassir.
Ahmad Kassir had always been a quiet person, but he could not keep silent in the face of injustice. He lived in Saudi Arabia at the time, but returned to Lebanon after the Israeli invasion. Our uncle tried to hold him back, telling him that a war was raging. But his reply was, "I know what I must do."
Within a matter of moments, this unknown young man would become a hero in the Shiite struggle against Israel, what is known here as a shaheed, a martyr of the resistance. He was about to commit a bold act that had no precedent in Lebanon, one that was both religious and political.
In 1982, we inevitably lost in any direct confrontation with Israel. We had no way of striking back. We could only get somewhere by taking a new, more effective approach. Acts of martyrdom.
7 a.m., November 11th, 1982. Ahmad Kassir drives along the main thoroughfare through Tyre. Without hesitation, he accelerates and crashes himself and his vehicle into a large residential complex. The Israeli military headquarters for the whole of southern Lebanon collapsed. A 7-story building demolished.
באיזה קומה אתה היית כשהיה פיגוע?
קומה חמישית. והייתי בדיוק בשירותים. באתי לעשות צרכים ופתאום שמעתי את הפיצוץ. והרגשתי שהכל קורס. ופתאום ראיתי את עצמי קבור מתחת להריסות של הבטון. והתחלתי לצרוח שיצילו אותי. אחרי איזה שעה של מאמצים הצליחו למשוך אותי מתחת להריסות של הבטון.
أنا كنت بصور كونه عنا كان محل خضرة.
At the time, we had a grocery store in Tyre. I was on my way there when the explosion happened. I'll never forget it. There were pieces on fire everywhere. The whole building was on fire. The Jews had blocked the street. We were proud that something was finally happening, although we didn't know what. We were occupied. We were glad that some of the occupiers died, but we were nervous because we didn't know who was behind it. We didn't know it was my brother Ahmad. I will never forget the moment I found out.
It was carnage. 91 Israeli soldiers and 15 Lebanese prisoners were killed. Ariel Sharon was mystified. How could something like this occur when the only known enemy, the PLO, had been crushed more than 2 months ago?
אחת הגרסאות אומרת שייתכן שזהו פיגוע חבלני. כיצד היית מגדיר את מצבו של אש"ף היום אחרי המלחמה?
באשר למצב כאן עצמו, למקרה הזה, אנחנו איננו יודעים אם זה היה פיגוע חבלני או לא. זה אחת מהמטרות של ועדת החקירה בבדיקתה. את מדינת הטרור הזאת, המדינה השפיסטית, אותה חיסלנו. עכשיו צריך לוודא שהיא לא תחזור ותקום על רגליה.
בריל טיים לא ידענו כלום.
We had no information. It was very unfortunate in retrospect. We knew there were some religious activists. Some we knew. Others we didn't.
הכרנו את חלקם.
The shock worsened when I began to research written records on the Shiites in Lebanon, compiled by intelligence and academics. I was very disappointed. There was almost no solid research on the subject. The universities had nothing either.
The multinational force in Lebanon, led by the Americans and French, was just as unaware as the Israeli military. On October 23, 1983, it was their turn to suffer a similar attack.
The 2-ton bomb devastated the 4-story building in which 200 Marines may have been sleeping when the explosion occurred shortly after 6 a.m. Beirut time.
The Americans lost 241 soldiers. At the same moment, a suicide bomber blew himself up in a building serving as a barracks for the French forces. 58 were killed. A double strike claimed by a mysterious Islamic Jihad movement, thought to be a figurehead for Hezbollah and Iran.
I think there is much that indicates that the Iranians did have a role, if not a very important role, in that.
Do you have any indication about responsibility? Who's guilty?
Yes, we have some. We're not going to point the finger until we're absolutely certain, but I think the thing that does come through loud and clear is just the insidious nature of terror, international terror.
With this new attack, the Hezbollah Shiites could no longer be ignored. They saw themselves as a resistance movement against Israel and its allies.
I recall Hezbollah seeming to be a domestic factor, and then by the mid-1980s, it was clear that there was this pipeline, arms, material, men coming from Iran, hostages going from Lebanon to Iran, and political support. So this was an emerging phenomenon.
From the start, the Iranian fighters were smart enough to understand that you cannot create an armed militia without the support of the local population. The Iranians constructed what I would call a counter-society alongside the ordinary Lebanese state. It works like this. A child is born. He goes to a Hezbollah daycare. Then he goes to a Hezbollah school. Then he joins the Hezbollah scouts. After that, he attends a Hezbollah high school. And then he joins Hezbollah.
The Israelis were counting 600 men dead in 2 years. It was a price many were not prepared to pay.
The Israeli army gradually lost control of Lebanon. On June 6, 1985, 3 years after the start of the invasion, the Israeli army pulled out, preserving a security zone in the south, an area representing 10% of Lebanese territory. The Israeli army remained there for 15 years until 2000. It saw this withdrawal as a humiliating defeat, while for Hezbollah, it marked a first victory. The Shiite organization chose the moment to claim responsibility for the destruction of the Tyre headquarters bombing. The name of the Shahid was also revealed, Ahmad Qasir. November 11th, the day of the attack, became the movement's official Martyrs' Day. When Ayatollah Khomeini passed away in June 1989, he left a lasting legacy. The Shiite theocracy which he had founded 10 years earlier had been firmly established, and the fight he initiated against Israel and the United States had, with the help of Hezbollah, profoundly changed the landscape in the Middle East. But moving forward, what would his successors do with his legacy?